Welcome everybody to the Three Gun Show. This is a special deconstructing practical shooting episode with our good buddy Mark Roth. Mark, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's great to have you back on the show.
Good, good. Glad to be here. I see you've done a little remodeling since I've been there last, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. This is pretty much like just
Looks like you actually cleaned up. I
all
mean,
guns all the time. Yeah. I did, and I've moved much more crap in here too. I forget how much junk I have like for practical shooting in it. Save for the guns, it all just stays in the office here. So no guns, no ammo after hours. So I got to cart all these bad boys in and out every day.
every day. Wow, that's incredible. I'm glad I got a good security system here because I just leave it lay. I mean, if
Yeah,
someone wants it that bad, good luck. But,
yeah,
and
pretty.
I hate to say that because customers' guns are in here. Sorry, guys.
Those ones are locked up. Those ones are fine.
We'll just get you new ones. They'll be like, yeah, somebody go rob them.
Mark. So since you were last on the show, man, a lot has transpired, and one of the coolest things was something that I got to check out when we were in Missouri shooting the Gadsden Shotgun Championship. So you got a new receiver out, the Roth Perform. Oh shoot! Plus you changed names. All kinds of
Yeah.
stuff been going
A
on.
lot of things. A lot of things. First of all, that was an awesome shotgun match, wasn't it?
That
If
was
anybody
so
has a
much
chance to
fun.
go to the Chad Francis Gadsden shotgun match, it's somewhere in when is it? Like, wasn't it end of March or something like that?
Yeah, that one I believe was end of March. Yeah, end of March. And what did we shoot? 14 stages?
We shot 13 stages, and if we were all done with 13 stages by 5 o'clock, we shot the 14th stage, which was the UTV stage, which everybody wanted
Nice.
to do that. So, but if you want to, and we didn't have a prize table, which was cool. It was what did it cost? Like $100.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
a
something like a
hundred
hundred
bucks
bucks.
for 13 stages, included lunch, which was awesome.
Yes, and really, really good stages. They weren't just a typical local USPSA style. I don't want to say it that way, but a local base style match, right?
Right.
I think majority of them were like jungle run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
So
good mix. There was probably I want to say like four out of the 14 were jungle runs. We had some bay stuff mixed in there and some multiple bay things, and then of course we had like
yeah.
some really quick stand and deliver type stuff.
Yep.
But
HIPIC style.
yeah, which this
Yeah.
was a match to prep the people that were going to the IPSC World Shoot, but
Right.
huge value, $100 for 14 stages, and you get a
Yeah.
shot of a UTV going like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, as fast as it would go. But yeah, hope for Chad right there. So,
Absolutely, yeah,
but
it was a
yeah,
good
since
one.
then,
Highly recommended for next year.
yeah, but that's where I first confided in you and a couple other people about what we were working on with that receiver project. And yeah, so it's been great. I mean, it's a revolutionary product on that end of it. Got one sitting here behind me. It's basically just a kit that you can put your all your parts on. It has everything that we've ever put into a gun plus some. So, the value in it is twofold for myself. It limits the amount of time that I have to wrench on guns, which will save my body a little bit because it wears on me. And the end user can get their gun a lot quicker. They can have it shipped to them 2 to 4 days once we get an FFL, and they can put all their parts on it and have pretty much the best performing race gun they can have within a week or week and a half. So,
So for people that don't know about it, this is it's a blank receiver, right? So it's just the receiver plus a couple extra little bits, and it fits a Benelli M2 or Breda B12 series,
correct.
and basically you can swap over all your standard parts all over to that receiver and have a race gun all ready to go.
Oh, absolutely. People still send us their guns, and we just swap out the receiver for them and send them the new receiver, the new gun back to their FFL along with their old receiver. So it works. There's a lot of benefits to it. We could probably talk an hour on it, and that to me, I think just go to rothperformance.com. You can check it out on that end. We've got videos. If you got questions, you can call us. Um, I know we've got a purpose here on this recording, so I appreciate the folks. I get
Yeah.
that, but we got a lot of stuff we want to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, real quick before we do that, and then we should get into the questions here. So, why the change from RCI X
You want?
Rail to Roth
Yep.
Performance?
Repeat that again. You cut out quick.
Why the change from RCI X-Rail to Roth Performance?
Good example. This is an X-Rail.
Right.
This is the product that put us on the map. It's really the only thing that we had at the time when we created Roth Concept Innovations. So the problem with that was is over time, as we started to develop all the other parts and extension tubes, doing vacuum ports, things like that, people would continue to associate our company with X-Rail. And that's pretty confusing on that end. But now we're not going to get rid of like X-Rail as the logo and that kind of stuff. That's a product logo. But it was really confusing. And over time, through advice from other people in the industry, they're like, why aren't you just branding your company as you? Because that's who people know. They know you. And, after being beat on the head long enough, I finally listened. And I think the biggest part of that was, with the introduction of the XB3G receiver, it really justified that rebranding at that time. So, I spent a little bit of time coming up with a new logo, which was actually pretty difficult. I thought, when I created the X-Rail logo, we didn't know anybody in the gun industry, so it really didn't matter. I didn't care. If they liked it or not, it didn't matter, So now that we have more at stake in it, creating something that represents Roth Performance was a little bit different. So that was probably the most challenging part of rebranding, was coming up with a logo that worked and met all the criteria of a logo. So.
All right. Well, good, man. I'm excited for you to see the new and exciting things and have it reach market and doing well. So good for you, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. So Mark, we're here to talk about deconstructing practical shooting. So you've been around the game for quite a while here. You've got a little bit of insight, and a lot of it you've shared with me over the years. So now let's see if we can delve a little bit deeper here. What do you say?
All right, let's do
it. All right. First question. Who is good at 3-gun despite being poorly built for it? Who's good at this that shouldn't be?
That's a pretty big question, because there's people that I can think of Nubs, Hunter.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. I mean, that's one that came into the game later than when I started. But by all rights, somebody with no hands and no feet should never be able to shoot practical shooting. That's kind of the extreme end of it. You got guys like him and Gil. First name.
James Gill.
James Gill. People that are missing limbs. Chris Fleming also has, missing limbs from serving for our country. And, those people by rights shouldn't be able to perform. Now, people like Nubs and, I can't call him Nubs, Hunter Kale. Hunter Kale. He wants you to call him Nubs, but anyway.
He does, yeah. I was never quite comfortable with that, but that's where he likes it.
Hunter Kale and James Gill, they'll kick your butt on the course too. That's the thing that's odd about it. You would think that they would, come in and perform at an average level, maybe 50% or 70% or something like that, but they really excel. And then other people that come to mind that are just dark horses, you never imagine they would, like James Darce. I mean, James Darce is a big boy, but he seems to kick everybody's butt. He does a great job of it. And actually, he's been doing really well the last 6 months or so. He's been losing some weight and that kind of stuff, which is really cool to see. But you always see people like that when you go to the range, even like a local club. I used to remember when I first started shooting, I'd go to local matches, and the 75-year-old guy with suspenders on holding up his belt and his gear be like half my time. I'm like, how is that possible?
He's been saving it up a little.
Yeah. So thankfully, the shooting sports isn't as dependent on physical stature on that end of it. So, but I don't know if that answered the question or not, but those are the ones that I came up with.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah. All right, Mark, I'm gonna stop for just a minute here. When you talk with your hands and you smack them on the table, we can hear that in the microphone. So.
Oh, okay. So you want me to sit on my hand?
Yeah, you're an animated guy, so we're gonna need you to tie those up.
Last person that told me that was Sister Beatty in the Catholic school when I was in 2nd grade. Yeah, she had that thick with the the rubber tip on the end. It wasn't a ruler, but man, that hurt.
Yeah, the pointer? Is that what
The
that
pointer.
was?
Yeah, the pointer. So.
All right, we'll whack you if you get too much out of hand here.
All right.
Who are the athletes or trainers that have the most controversial or unorthodox style in practical shooting? Why? What do you think of that style?
I guess that's a hard one to ask or answer because I don't pay attention to the way a lot of people train on that end as much. But there are some people that things have stuck out to me in the past that I never really thought about. Like, I can't remember who it was. Someone's like, if you really want to shoot on the move, run around with a cup in your hand and don't spill any water, fill it to the top. I'm like, that seems kind of unorthodox. But it made sense to me. It clicked because my wife was she tended bar and stuff like that, but she always used to brag about how she could carry stuff out like bottles of beer out in her hand and not spill anything, right? So I would imagine that might associate a little bit with sight picture movement being smooth. The other one's I think Jake Carrillo back probably this number of years back. He was telling me about he was doing eye exercises. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm seeing things faster. Like, looking at things faster. I'm like, really? I'm like, how is that? I guess it makes sense, but I've never sat there and put, like, dots all over my walls and went, look at this and that one, that one, that one, just to exercise, strengthen the muscles in my eyes, So that seemed kind of unorthodox. Myself, I dry fire in my mind. I think that's unorthodox. But controversial. I guess I don't really know how to answer that one. As far as a training application goes, I think all I think of is the YouTubers that aren't even in our sport that just put YouTube videos up to train people and they have absolutely no reason doing it at all because they're dangerous. But
yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about dry firing in your mind. What do you mean about dry firing in your mind? How do you achieve that?
I can't actually say that it's very successful. It's not as much dry fire in your mind as it is. I remember Patrick Kelly a long time ago telling me, because I asked him at one point why he never walked the stages. Like, we would go there and we would beat these stages dead like a horse, right? We would walk them back and forth and back and forth, and he'd come in and he'd look at him, and Mike Boyd would do the same thing. He'd be like, oh, I saw this at 96 at USPSA Nationals. Got a mag? He wouldn't even, but your mind is a powerful thing. So if you walk the stage and you understand where things are and you got a couple of memory points, then you can rehearse that stage time and time and time again in your mind. You can rehearse shooting in your mind. I think dry fire has a great benefit to it, but I don't have enough time to grab a gun even for 10 or 15 minutes. If I'm going to have 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to go spend it with my kids and my wife. For me, there's different levels of the sport. You have the young guns that are chomping at the bit, and even people like Jerry. People wonder why Jerry's so good, and it's because he's constantly striving to do something better, always learning. But that's really his main job in life, is to be a great shooter. That's what he lives for. That's what he breathes for. And a lot of the young guns do the same thing too. For people like myself, I just don't have time for it. 5 years ago, I had a lot more time for it. And maybe there will be a point in life where I will have more time for it again. But at this point in life, it's not. I remember, 5, 6 years ago, I would dry fire a lot, physically dry fire a lot, and I would go to the range a lot and I would practice. And it really didn't take much. But dry fire in your mind, I guess you could associate that with is perfecting everything you're doing on a particular stage or within a particular task through thought and memory. And it really does work. So.
All right. Sounds good. Who are the most impressive lesser known teachers?
Lesser known teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one that's coming on very strong lately is Farrell.
Joe Farewell?
Joe Farewell, yeah. He's kind of taken the bull by the horns and just gotten out here. He's been a SWAT cop for years. He's an excellent shooter. He's come into the sport as of the last probably 4 years that I've recognized him, 3, 4 years. And that kid knocks it out of the park. I'm so impressed with that guy. He's very well spoken. He communicates really well. The people that have done classes with him have really good reviews on it. Um, that's the one that comes to my mind the most. There's a lot of people that do training courses. Myself, I don't, but I do teach. The youth in our area, neighbors, friends, family, stuff like that. We're in a range, but that's the one that comes to my mind right off the bat. So
Yeah, Joe's he's really stepping up the training game too. He's
yeah,
constantly doing classes. Pretty cool to see.
yeah.
All right, Mark, what makes you different? Who trained you or influenced you?
Um, I don't know that anybody particularly trained me. I do know that I spent a lot of time with Nick Kalishak, who's a local shooter here. Once we got to know each other, and I learned so much from him. He loads bullets for me, my long range bullets. I learned a ton of information from him. And he only does a few majors a year, so not a lot of people know who he is. But he can step up with the best of them easily on that end of it. Um, Learning from people like Jerry and Tony Holmes and Bruce Pyatt over the years, anytime I get a chance to spend time with them, I'll take advantage of it. I used to go down to in the beginning of the year. I always used to do the Mystery Mountain match, and I would drive to it. But because winter in Wisconsin doesn't end until after Mystery Mountain, I typically would never even zero my guns or anything like that. And I would just throw them in the car, and I would go down to Jerry's, and I would stay there for a day just to warm up before driving the rest of the way. And Jerry never trains you. He's just like, let's just go shoot, right? But it's a monkey see, monkey do thing. And you can tell how you're doing with someone else based on what they do. And he'd ask me questions. He'd be like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, okay, try this. You know what I mean? So I don't think I've never taken a formal class per se. But I think when you do things long enough, you pick things up over time. And that's just basically because of my lifestyle. It had nothing to do with whether I want to or not. I think in an ideal world, everybody would go, hang out with Bruce Pyatt for a week and just pick his brain or do any class that they could, whether it's a Keith Garcia class or a, even Daniel Horner class, something like that. But yeah, as far as I think the training aspect of it all depends on what you want out of the sport. Um, there's so many things that you can do within this sport. The biggest thing that we do is we create products. So I got into the shooting industry because I like to compete and shoot. But as you start developing products, it kind of takes a secondary seat. And I get just as much fulfillment out of that as I do shooting. So, and a lot of times even more, because you're providing the best thing you can possibly provide as a solution, because you know what the solutions need to be to people to use and compete at a high level. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Have you trained others to shoot three gun, and have they replicated your results?
yes, the best example I can give is a couple of people local to me that are in the firearms industry that I met in Las Vegas at SHOT Show about 4 years ago. Rob Syra, and at the time was one of his counterparts, Carl, and then the president of their company, John, and the sales manager, Andy. And I met them at SHOT Show, and I had no idea that their company existed. What they do is they make all copper brass wire. If anybody makes ammunition out of a wire method, like Hornady, Vista, all those companies, they buy all the wire from these guys. Well, Hornady convinced Levada, the company's named Levada, to sponsor the Zombies match. And so I got a call from them, like, hey, this is Rob. We met at SHOT Show. What's this three-gun thing about? I'm like, oh, okay. And he told me the scenario, so I'm like, okay, you need to come by the shop. Literally 5 minutes from here, right? We had no idea that each existed within the same space. So they came over, and I think we spent probably 3 weeks going to the range like every other day, just shooting, learning how, finding out what their skill level was, what kind of gear they had, and that kind of stuff. And Rob actually does very well today. He's within the top 30% at the matches that he goes to. So he's hung with it, and he's taken on to it, and he knows all the guys really well. He's good friends with Jay Carrillo. They talk all the time, so they'll go to polo matches, things that are local here, and so I think I at least led him the way to learn more on that end of it. So other than that is local bachelor parties and get local neighbor kids that want to come out to the range because I'm bringing my son out or something, and I just teach them how to shoot and that kind of stuff. So
nice. Yeah, Rob's a good dude. Got to tour the Lovato factory when I was hanging out with you one year, and it's
pretty impressive place, isn't it?
It's amazing, and for a manufacturing nerd like me, like I was in heaven.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Rob's like, I'm sorry, this is boring. I'm like, no, this is awesome.
It was funny because when I met him at SHOT Show, he came up to me at the booth and he's, "Oh, you're from Appleton." I'm like, I looked at his thing. I'm like, "You're from Appleton too." And I read Levada on his tag. I'm like, Levada? I pass your place every day taking my kid to school, and I always wondered because it only had this big building with like 3 vehicles in the parking lot. That's it. Like, why are you here? He's like, "Oh, we make." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You make all that stuff right there?" And I had no clue. I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, you got to come by and check it out." So anytime any of my friends from out of town are here, I always try to find a way to get them to that facility because it's so impressive. I mean, they actually upcast all the wire. They make it there, from start to end. So they make their own recipes. It's a pretty cool thing. So
yeah, it's nuts. Like I had I guess I did never really stop to think of like how a brass case was made, but this like blew my mind. It was so cool to see that in action.
Yeah. Even like they have physicists on staff or metallurgists or whatever that have tenure at UW Madison. So I'll ask them questions. Like anytime I have sample stuff come in, I call him Dr. Joe. I'll call him up and I'm like, "Hey, can I give you something you can bring down and do a spectra scan on? Make sure it's like this material or that material." He's like, "Yeah, sure, drop it off." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You normally have to pay like $500 to have someone cut a piece off of metal and do a scan on it and tell you what the material was." And he's like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll bring it down with me. I'm going on Tuesday." And I'm like, "Oh, cool.
Yeah, those are good friends to have.
Thanks." Yeah.
All right. What are the biggest mistakes and myths you see in 3-gun training? What are the biggest wastes of time?
One things that I used to do all the time in the beginning, and I'm sure you probably think of this too. I remember one of my first couple of matches, and I'm doing my stage plan, walking through and doing all this stuff, and Scott McGregor comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, is that the way Jerry's doing it?" Because we're all shooting together, right? He's like, "Is that the way Jerry's doing it?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Do you think there's a reason why?" And I'm like, "What are you trying to tell me? That I'm stupid? Like I can't think outside of the box? I'm a creative guy, right?" After a while, I got it. I understood it. I'm like, okay, all right. There's an efficient way to do things, and then there's my way. So, learning how not to listen to your own mind sometimes is actually good, because I think we think things, we overthink problems too much sometimes, and learning how to just relax a little bit and have fun with it, and just kind of pay attention to what other people are looking at, what they're observing, and why. You can learn so much from that. I definitely am my own worst demon when it comes to stage planning sometimes, because if I'm not with people stage planning, I get my own ideas, and I get kind of pulled down a rabbit hole into that being the best way to do something. And then all it takes is one person doing it, going, "Why didn't I think of that?" Well, it's too late now. I'm already committed to my plan. Or I try to make the adjustment midstream, which that's another thing never do. And if you got a bad plan executed well is better than a good plan not executed well. If you think about it that way, I mean, it's yeah. So, um, not having your gear set up right, not paying attention to the environment, the conditions, things like that. Um, there's a lot of stuff that can be overlooked, and that's where if you ever go to a match and you have the opportunity to shoot with really good shooters that are always consistent. The number one goal should be just mimic them. Find out their gear, what they're doing, what their standard procedure is, the night before a match, or how they take care of their guns, how often they clean them, how do they load their ammunition, what do they do to make sure they're ammunition 100%, all those little things, and you're going to do the amount you're going to do that they do will determine where you place. Really, if you're not willing to put in the miles, then don't expect to be at their level. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Um, I'd get mad, so I'd get really frustrated really early on because I knew I could shoot, but I didn't know why I couldn't get past 50% of Jerry. I mean, what wasn't I doing? What wasn't I doing that he was doing? And it was until I just relaxed a little bit and just started to think, okay, just pay attention to what he does. And a lot of these people, if you ask them why, they'll tell you it doesn't matter, but you can pick up just by observing, how they become more efficient, how they discard their guns, transition to new ones, safety's on, safety's off, sight picture acquisition, trigger press, all those things.
So, when you're talking about stage planning and just doing what everybody else is doing, so I've often wondered about this when it seems like, I don't know, probably long before my time, 20, 30 years ago, we as a community decided there was a right way to do things, whether it was shooting or it was shooting on the move, practical shooting in general, whatever you want to call it. And then we've all been kind of like mimicking that since then. Do you think that type of groupthink can be a bad thing, or do you think it's always a good thing?
Oh, it can be a bad thing. Um, uh, Great example is loading a shotgun.
Yeah.
Look at how long people fought doing the traditional, weak hand, 4 shells, thumb load. They fought it forever. The top guys fought it as long as they could until they were getting their butts kicked, and then they had to conform. Nobody likes change. But I think it's the people that are the quickest to adapt to change that are usually the more successful in obtaining success with that change. But you're right, we do that all the time. Um, it's funny because over the last 15 years that I've been around, or 12, 15 years, somewhere in that area, I've seen the sport evolve 4 different times completely. And in each evolution, it was all a technology-driven evolution. It really didn't have as much to do with people learned how to shoot better. I think once you have marksmanship skills and once you're a good shooter, those things are they're although they are perishable, there's a skill level that you obtain naturally that whether you shoot for a month, it's still going to be at that level, right? But learning how to go around the track faster is all about trying different things. If you want to relate it to like a NASCAR environment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost Mark. Didn't pay his internet bill. He's kind of there, kind of not there. Mark, oh, hopefully Mark will be joining us. So let's go to the chat real quick. DJ has joined us. He says, "Hi guys," and then he says that you should mimic people by wearing flip flops. I think that's a Mark Roth reference there. And then Rob Hall says, "Greetings and salutations, gentlemen." Hi, Rob. So hopefully Mark will join us back here again. Just kind of waiting. Oh, hey. Rob says Mark and streaming don't get along. That's true. It's very true. Although he did go get a fancy new camera, so it looks clear when he's on. DJ says Mark lives in Wisconsin. They don't know what the internet is. And DJ also asks, "What do you do to be better, Dave?" I have conversations like this with amazing shooters. That's what I do. Honestly, um still trying to figure that out, DJ. Trying to balance the business of the 3-gun show with actually shooting and enjoying myself. So that's what we're doing right now. And I don't think Mark's joining us back again. I think he done. Should we check the cell phone, see if he texted me? Stand by, everybody. He says, I swear I did not hit delete. Can you rejoin? What beer are you drinking? DJ, I am drinking Arrowhead Mountain Spring Water. That's with carbonation. Rob, I'm glad to hear that, man. Rob says, dude, I love this deconstructing series. Good stuff. Cool, man. I'm glad you like it. It's a fun thing to do. And it's going to be kind of interesting because I'm trying to figure out what to do with all the data, right? Because everybody's asking or answering the same questions. Mark asked me to re-email him here, so stand by. I'm asking everybody the same questions, so we're going to get like a large sample size, right? Which is kind of cool. And while we've had a lot of the same questions on the 3-gun show in the past, I've never done a concerted effort. Never done a concerted effort to have all of the same questions answered by the same people. So that's pretty cool. All right. Mark's having trouble joining here. Says, please wait when he tries to click to join. Oh, he's back.
All right. Okay.
It
Cool.
worked.
Yeah.
Cool. We've been just talking about you this whole time.
That was a coffee break. Karuba coffee. Coffee break. I had to go get coffee.
I love it.
All right, dude. I don't know what happened there, but I swear I didn't hit delete. I'm not even close to my keyboard. So.
Yeah, I'm watching. You didn't hit anything.
No, and I'm not tapping my hands on anything either. So.
No. Okay.
All right, we're back. Where were we?
I don't remember, but we're going to go on to the next question here.
All right, sounds good.
What are your favorite instructional books or resources on practical shooting? If people had to teach themselves, what would you suggest they use?
Yeah, I can honestly tell you I've never read one of those books or watched a video. Sorry, I'm bad.
All right, so if someone had to, do you have any recommendations for them?
Usually when people call me, I recommend, Vegan Nation always had a good source online for information about gear and things like that, which is good. I don't really push people towards, AR15.com and that kind of stuff because that's kind of a, I don't spend any time on that site, on that end of it. But to be honest with you, I haven't really visited the 3-gun Nation sites at all lately, so I really don't know what kind of content they're putting up. But even Recoil Web TV has been doing pretty good with information out there as far as guns and gear. But getting involved with even USPSA, as odd as it might sound from a 3-gun standpoint, the Front Sight magazine is really good for information on tips as far as shooting accurately. They always got good articles from top level, grandmaster shooters. So just trying to absorb any information online, and a lot of guys that have YouTube channels as far as that display their shooting, their matches, stages that they've shot, things like that. I think people can learn a lot from that. But then I just pretty much tell people, find your local club that has any kind of USPSA or action shooting and go shoot. You'll learn a lot just by being there, and bring whatever you have. That's kind of why I like. Pete Rensing's the UML League, which has been a really big thing coming on in the last year and a half or so. Which is they have really good top level matches, but the format is really designed, in my mind, I look at it as a great basis for local level clubs, so that anybody excuse me, can come out with any gear that they have, and actually there's a division for them. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times people are too afraid to go shoot a match because they're like, oh, it's a 3-gun match and I don't have a good shotgun, or maybe their ego's too big and they don't want to humble themselves to come to a match with their gear. They feel like they got to go and buy all the top level stuff before they go shoot. But the UML kind of accommodates that, because you can go out there with any. If you show up to a UML multi-gun match and you have your pistol, you shoot all pistol. If you come up with your PCC, you can shoot all PCC. If you just got a rifle and a shotgun, guess what? You can shoot rifle shotgun. You know what I mean? So you can pick the best tools that you've got in your bag and bring them out there and go play. So
I like that. All right. Not one mention of the 3-gun show though, huh?
as far as the 3-gun show goes, that's excellent information. As far as you get to hear from all the top shooters, you have great interviews on that, great subjects. I'm trying to save face here, Dave.
It's okay. It's okay. I always forget about you too. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I know. Well, I thought you were talking like books and tapes.
No, I was. I'm just
know,
teasing. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Stuff on that end of it. So any episode that I'm on for the 3-gun show, those are really good.
Side note, I'm still getting a hate mail on the best shotgun for 3-gun episode that we
really?
did like 2 years
awesome,
ago.
Man. I totally forgot about
that. I looked at so yeah, I mean the most comments I've ever gotten on the website are from that, and then we did did the rebroadcast of it on YouTube, and that has the most thumbs down of any podcast that I've rebroadcast on YouTube.
Yeah. Is that a success then, or what? I think that's
absolutely. Yeah. It just shows that people take themselves too seriously and can't have fun with it.
Absolutely. Well, people are really brand loyal.
Yeah.
And they're brand loyal, just like you drive your vehicles. Like I'm a Ford truck guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly
of course.
Well, I can honestly tell you that the only reason I'm a Ford truck guy is because I've always owned Fords and they've always worked. I don't have anything bad against any of the other ones. I don't bash them. I just know that I'm going to spend 50 grand on a vehicle. I'm going to go buy a Ford. Yeah. I mean, I've had Dodges and other ones before, and I've had problems. So for my personal experience, and for all I know, I could have had a Dodge that was built on, the Friday before Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And, all the bolts were loose and nobody checked it and it went out the door. Right? You never know that. So, but people are so brand specific, it makes it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and especially with the shotgun. And like we said in the podcast, or I guess I said in the podcast, like people treat it like it's their girlfriend, right? They've made their selection, right. And if you say anything bad about her, we're gonna go have to fight. All right. Yeah, it's a good one. Anyway, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, that was a blast. It was kind of a last minute thing, but I think it turned out really well. On that end of it, surprisingly. But you've done some other goofy things too that have been pretty cool in your shows. Yeah, like the interviews with Adam Maxwell.
Yeah.
You did live stuff with him at I think it was down in Tulsa, either Tulsa or Texas. Must have been Texas multi-gun or something like that. Shooter Source.
Yes, Shooter Source. We did a live video.
Yeah.
Or we did a video, but it wasn't live.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad you're doing a video component. I think we had talked about this a while back on that end. I love listening to your show when I'm on the road because I can download all of them. Like I drive 10, 12 hours at a time, and I can listen to episodes that I haven't listened to over and over again. And it's actually very entertaining because it also brings you back to why you do what you do. You know what I mean? A lot of times, for me personally, like I'm gonna head back down to Missouri Tuesday night, drive 10 hours to shoot in the rain, pretty much. And when I listen to your shows, it reminds me why I like doing that. Because this is a hobby. It's not a profession. It's a hobby. It's dirt track racing. It's anybody that thinks they're gonna become a millionaire shooting, stop thinking that right now. You gotta have fun doing it because you're not. I mean, you might get some good sponsorships and have some good stuff, but this is a hobby. So, but listening to your show reminds me why I like doing my hobby.
Yeah. You know, it's really cool to be able to talk to people that are so enthusiastic about the same thing that you are. You know,
Correct.
and that's what I think is kind of the magic of the Three Gun Show, is that we get to talk about the thing that we love to do, and
Yeah.
and the audience gets to sit in and be a part of that discussion.
Hmm. I often thought it would be cool to do. I think you and I had talked about this before. About I'd entertained doing like a once a week, live, uh, I don't know, live Facebook thing where it was more interactive. Like right now, we're doing a show that's really you and I,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, if it was live on Facebook, they could like post questions. But I realized really early on doing live, you can't read these posts and keep your mind focused on what you're trying to do. So that almost don't work either. But
Yeah, you really need at least two people to do that. Like for
right.
example, while you were gone, you were trying to reconnect.
Yep.
I was just talking to the people that are watching this live in the chat, and so
Okay.
there's a nice big comment thread going right now of people following along with us.
Hey, ask everybody how they like poker chips down at that PCC match.
Yeah, DJ is in the chat there, so
Is
hopefully he's
it
got something to
DJ?
say.
Yeah, DJ will have positive things to say, I think, about it. But um, I don't design stages and I don't do matches very often. I mean, local stuff I'll help out with, but that kind of came out in a last minute thing, and I'm like, I like the PCC craze. It's really a good thing, and I think people can. It's reinvigorated people to go out and shoot and have fun,
Hmm.
right? Without pressure on them. They can, anybody can grab a PCC and feel confident in shooting. Not like a pistol or a rifle or something like that, right? Most of the time, PCC doesn't have like a. I don't even know if there's any classifications or anything. I know that these guys have these big sticks, 50 rounds and stuff like that in it. So it almost becomes like the early Three Gun Nation stuff. Not nothing against Three Gun Nation, but it was like a hose fest. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So when Sky asked me to design stages for that match, I'm like, well, it's a rifle, so why don't we shoot it like a rifle and have to actually be accurate? You know? So some people, if you hate me because of those stages, I did my job. And I'll stand by that to the death, but I guarantee you looked at PCC different after you shot those stages.
yeah.
So,
I've heard that from quite a few people actually, that they have been practicing for shooting a pistol match with their rifle and not shooting it as a rifle. So it found a lot of holes in people's games.
correct. Just simple things like bore offset. Most of these guys or most people, because PCC is so forgiving and you can shoot it real fast and quick and hit your targets, and it's mainly paper punching in a lot of the scenarios. People don't understand the bore offset on their stuff. They dope down their loads really low, so they're running like 800 feet per second, and they're just like cannon lobs. At 50 yards they'll hit the paper and the bullet just falls out the back. I mean they're going that slow. So I figured, well, let's figure out what your bore offset is. If you zero at 25, what's your point of impact at 35? Let's make accurate shots out of it. And I think it at least it was well received because nobody beat me up, but um, it challenged everybody at every level on that end of it. And I think that the top level shooters probably didn't like it because of that. But I'm hoping that they walked away from it going, PCC is going to change. You know what I mean? As far as like, okay, we are really shooting a rifle.
Yeah.
Why don't we do these things? I remember way back, Jerry Mitchell telling me about Sportsman's Team Challenge, where at 50 yards they're using 10-22s and they're shooting quarter-size plates out of a plate rack on time. And I'm like, and the only reason I remember that is I was asking him, I'm like, how come you shoot so well offhand? He's like, because I got the muscle memory for it. I've been doing it for years because of Sportsman's Team Challenge. So that was kind of the thought in my mind with it, is like, you're really shooting a rifle, and these guys are all, people online are always bragging about how they're, such and such PCC shooting quarters at 50 yards. They're so super accurate and everything. And like, all right, well then let's make it an accuracy stage then. I don't know. I thought it was good. I mean, a lot of people didn't, but if we don't test ourselves with that stuff, in my mind, I think that's the way to push that sport forward, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's great to get out and shoot and shoot really fast and to be a top shooter within PCC because you have really fast footwork. You're good at, you know, manipulation drills, in and out of ports, things like that. But, you know, let's see how you do when accuracy is involved. Much bigger accuracy, and that's where the poker tip came from. So, yeah, I mean, that was quite challenging on that end of it, but it made it different. It gave a different flavor to it because we ran a hit factor scoring, and it was not a it was a Lucas Oil PCC championship. It wasn't the USPSA match. It was kind of our mix of our own rule set, which allowed us to use different target presentations than you would normally use in a USPSA setting or an IPSC setting. Mm-hmm. So, but using hit factor scoring at least allowed everybody to be able to do the math with something that was familiar to them in their world as far as USPSA or IPSC on that end. So.
Well, and I do like that too because it's, you know, pretty much a brand new game with a PCC, right? So who's to say you're not shooting long stuff with accuracy and things like that? Because we're still figuring that out. It's still like the dawn of this game.
Yeah. I mean, I got to admit that I think a poker chip, I mean, I put them at 15 and 7 yards. So some of the guys are like, I can't even see that. I'm like, you know, the rules say you can put anything on your gun. Why didn't you bring a 1 to 8 optic then or something? I don't know. I mean, but you know what I mean? I couldn't, all I knew is that I know I could shoot that with my dot, you know, and I have bad eyesight. So yeah, you're right. If you chip an edge of it, you couldn't see that you hit it with the edge of it. And then you might have hit the no shoot on the second shot because we had no shoots under him too. That was really brutal on that end of it. But
that's the same thing as like a clay in 3-gun though. You know, if you edge that thing, you can't really see it.
Yeah, you know, like you put 1 dB on it, and you usually end up shooting it again or something.
Yeah.
But as far as the poker chips, I think most people had an issue with there being a no shoot, with it being a no shoot underneath it. So it really had like a 4x4 stand. There was a no shoot, and the chip was on top of it. But my big concern with the design of it was keeping the presentation the same throughout the whole match for 200 shooters. Otherwise, you put all that effort into it, and then they just argue to have it thrown out because, you know, the presentation changed or something. So it being a no shoot limited the amount of times people were drilling that plate to try to hit that chip.
Yeah,
so it kept the presentation the same the longest on that end. But there is one of the stages that got thrown out, I think, because the presentation changed. But, you know, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, I think, in my mind. But so.
Yeah, not bad. All right, Mark, we got 5 questions left.
All right, let's do it.
If you were to train me for 12 weeks for a major match and we had $1 million on the line, what would the training look like? What if you trained for 8 weeks?
So 12 weeks and 8 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Can I answer that question with a question?
Sure.
What's the difference between 4 weeks?
It's only 2/3 of the time.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a good question.
It's 2 months versus 3 months, right?
Well, if I had $1 million, I'd probably keep about 250 of it, and then I'd go give Jerry 750 of it, and I'd bring you down there and watch him train you.
Yeah. No. The stakes for $1 million. If we succeed, then we get the $1 million. If we fail, we get nothing. But the memories.
We're screwed, dude. We're screwed.
All right.
For $1 million, I mean, I guess you could set a lot of things up to train really hard for $1 million. I mean, if you had 12 weeks to do it versus 8 weeks to do it, I mean, I'm understanding the question, right?
Yeah.
What would I do if I had 12 weeks, and what would I do if I had 8 weeks to get $1 million to train you well?
No. If we perform well, if I perform well in the match based on your training, we win $1 million. Like,
okay.
That's the match that we're going for. One prize, $1 million.
Well, for the first 2 weeks, I'd get your ass on one of those Peloton bikes, and you would never get off of it. If you didn't have cardio, none of that other stuff would matter. I think I think honestly, when you dissect top level shooters from average shooters, that cardio is a huge percentage of it, right? Bigger guys don't move as much. You know, they might be bigger guys, but if they got good cardio and good oxygen supply to their muscles, they don't shake as much. Things are smoother. Sights are better, things like that. I always wondered why, even Dave Staskowitz, he's a wiry kid like me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel Horner, he's not a big guy. How can that guy drill things so easily? Well, if you run 5 miles a day, right? If you have really good lung capacity, it's a lot of those things become easier when your heart's all jacked up. So that'd be the first thing I'd do. And then I would do accuracy-based shooting, fast speed accuracy-based shooting. Outside of that, then it would become probably a stage breakdown in how you would approach stages, doing that method on things. But if you don't have the speed and the accuracy, stage breakdown doesn't really matter. Doing transitions, things like that, I'd probably cover the gamut, but I think I would start out with the physical fitness part of it first, and I'd spend a lot of time on that because I think that's really what separates a lot of the top guys from the average guys. Look at Clint Upchurch, huge, massive guy, great shape. Josh Fralick, same thing. Guy's in great shape, right? Even Jerry's in great shape, and he'll tell you he's been doing some exercise stuff lately, but when you're in really good shape and you don't get winded, things just seem normal, right? So it's a lot easier to perform things like you would at a range just bullseye shooting after you ran a half a mile because you're not as stressed on that end of it. Now myself, I'm probably the worst example of that because I drink coffee and smoke cigarettes all day long. I get halfway through, I'm good for about 100 yards. 101, you're going to carry me away on a stretch. I tell people that all the time. I go to Blue Ridge, they're like, wow, you can do really well. I'm like, you're going to carry me after I finish Blue Ridge one stage. It'll be like, I will literally, you can ask Dave Powers, he'd be like, yeah, it'll take 5 minutes to get up after that long range stage because they're like, Lance, unload your weapon so clear. I'll be like, they're panting. Like, give me oxygen, something, But if you can get that done without being your heart and all of your muscles being totally stressed out, it's going to be a lot easier. So we'd win $1 million if you could do a marathon.
All right. Sounds good.
I think you're a good enough shooter.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right. What are the biggest mistakes novices make when shooting or practicing shooting? What are the biggest misuses of time?
At a match or just practicing at a range or all of the above?
Match or practice.
I think a lot of people spend way too much time trying to hit bullseyes at the range with all of their stuff and dialing their loads in to super accurate loads versus spending that time actually putting up a plate rack and shooting a plate rack. That at least at the practice range, I think that's what the mistake they make the most, spending too much time on gear and making sure gear works well when it's important that the gear works well, but I've been shooting the same open pistol ever since the beginning, and I know the barrel is like pretty shot out on it. I've probably got about 45,000, 50,000 rounds through it, but it'll still hold like 2.5 inches at 50 yards. I don't care.
That's pretty good.
You know what I mean? It doesn't, well, you know what I mean? That's like bench rest, lockdown, ransom rest, but having accuracy is good, but sometimes in 3-gun, it doesn't have to be that accurate. And I think that time could be spent just doing little drills, whether it's dry fire, whether it's going to the range, setting up a plate rack, or a plate rack in a bucket that takes a little bit of time, or even practicing shooting in the wind long range. Everybody goes to the range on the day that's perfect wind to zero their ammo, all that stuff with their rifle. Well, today I went up to the range because it's like 12-mile-an-hour wind. I want to know. I got my butt handed to me out at Mystery Mountain because of the wind.
Yeah.
And I need to figure the wind part out, right? So that's, to me, that's more valuable, going to the range, knowing my gun's on, but it's windy. So is my data telling me what it's supposed to be doing, and is that what's happening with my bullet when I shoot? So at the actual matches, I think the biggest waste of time people have is overthinking stuff. Back to the Pat Kelly part, where you see the stage in your mind, not spending so much time on stages that you overthink it. So
I gotcha. What mistakes are the most common, even at the pro level?
The last plate on the plate rack. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I've been there for sure.
The head, the go, oh, missed it, go, oh, missed it, go, oh, missed it. You know, little hesitation, assuming, not calling your shots. I think I see that all the time on the pro level. Um, the people that just, it seems like the better you get, the faster you want to shoot. So that can also be a downside because, right? I see people, that's probably the biggest thing is outshooting yourself, outshooting your ability. You know, you start to accelerate, and when you get a good grip on the pistol and you're going fast, you're going faster and faster, and you tend to override. You tend to go faster than your sights are letting you see, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People that never make mistakes like that, they know what their speed is, and they don't exceed it, right? They'll perform at 90%, 100% of the time, rather than, you know, performing 100%, 90% of the time. If that makes sense. You know,
Mm-hmm.
average guy is going to want to go out. For myself, it's like my goal is to shoot 80% of my ability 100% of the time. It's not. I'm naturally about an 80 to a 90% level shooter at a big match, right? That's just honestly where my skill level at this point in time is, based on what I have to put into the sport or put into my hobby, right? Also have an understanding of where your level is at based on where you're at in life too. 5 years ago, I shot a lot better than I shoot now, but I spent a lot more time shooting. So, you know, keep that in mind. Your life changes, you have kids, your job, you have more work. You're not going to go to the range and perform like you did when you were single and didn't have any kids. So give yourself a break. If you didn't put the time in, don't expect the results. So anytime, I hear from people that like go to the gym, big guys that go to the gym all the time,
Mm-hmm.
they stop going to the gym, and then they wonder why when they go back to the gym it's that much harder to do everything over again. But if they're not putting in the time, they're not going to stay in shape. So it's relevant. The amount of time you put into it is what your results are going to be.
Well said. What are your key principles for better, more consistent shooting? What are they for rifle, pistol, and shotgun?
For rifle, it's control heart rate, sight picture press, just like I do with a pistol. Getting in, taking the time and to get into a good position. I've noticed it over the years that it's pretty easy to commit to a bad plan, and it takes a really top level person to understand when you're in a bad committed position, and taking the time to change that so that you can correct it and break better shots. I think pistol's the same way too. You know, if you get a bad grip out of the holster and you get going along and you're speeding up and your grip changes because of the recoil or the position you're in, what you're changing, sometimes taking that half second to readjust your grip is all it takes to shoot more accurately the rest of the string of fire. Shotgun, um, with shotgun, I think is the thing I shoot the best. It's what I grew up with. But I also think that you have sights, you need to use them. And that's a difficult thing for people that come from a sporting clays discipline or a trap discipline, because they kind of teach the opposite. They don't teach you to look at your sights. They teach you to follow through and those kind of things. Well, we're doing an action-based shooting where the sights actually are they're an important part of achieving the task, if that makes sense. So a lot of times I know I'm shooting well when I'm seeing the sights all day long. It doesn't matter which gun I'm using. If I'm seeing the sights, I know I'm doing good. It's too easy to get distracted, start calling your shots. Tony Holmes taught me this a long time ago, and I can't remember what match it was. It was like 2007 or 8 at CMMG when they used to have that match. And he watched me shoot, and he's like, "Why are you scoring your targets?" You know what I mean? Like I would do it all the time and be like, "Bang, is there a hole in it? Bang, is there a hole?" You know what I mean? Right. And I see new people do that all the time. He's like, "You got to trust your sights. If you went to the range and you're doing the right things and you know your gun is on, trust your sights. Move on." I mean, your vision will pick that plate rack up if you missed the second plate. You don't have to wait for it to fall. See the sights, break the shot, move on. So that's probably the biggest things for me.
All right. So follow on question to that one. What does the progression of exercises or drills look like?
Um, the progression, I think, would be if I could relate this to a construction aspect. I did construction for years, right? And we would hire new people, and they'd come in, and the first time they had a hammer in their hand, it was a foreign object, right? You'd watch them swing that thing. You'd be praying they didn't hit their toe or knock their thumb off or something like that because it was so foreign. And so I think at the beginning, as the progression is, the biggest thing is being familiar with the tools that you're using, right? Setting them up so they feel comfortable for you. Just like setting up a tool pouch for construction. You go out and buy 5 of them. One fits you well. You like your hammer on this side. You like your nail pouch on this side. You like your knife and square in another pocket, right? Get familiar with your tools. I think the progression to that is understanding how they operate and knowing that the intricacies of each tool that you have. The more proficient you come with them, the faster you go. I remember in the beginning, for me, for shooting, I would be so safe because I was so nervous because I was playing with firearms, right? I think that's a natural progression for anybody. It doesn't matter if you were in a profession that you used firearms, right? If you're in law enforcement, the first thing they teach you is put your safety on every time out. Yeah, you see, you can always tell people from law enforcement come into our sport because in between movements from one place to the next, they put their safety on their rifle, right? So now the progression is learning that this is a game and you don't necessarily have to do that. I mean, it's not like it hurts them. You just understand that, right? So for me in the beginning, I'd be like so deliberate. You see all the people that are new, they go to discard their pistol. The first thing they do is drop their mag and rack their slide. That takes 3 seconds to do that because they don't trust themselves enough with the tool they have in their hand to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, they put the safety on and put it in the bucket. And then you see guys like, I don't know, Jesse Tischhauser, who throws his pistol in from 3 feet away, running past it. Or Mark Hanisch. I remember watching Mark Hanisch take his Scars, rifle with the loophole, and he literally speared it through the barrel at Mystery Mountain. I think it was Mystery Mountain a number of years back, from literally 3 feet away. He was running past that thing. He threw it in there like it was a tool. And the progression in the sport, in the beginning, you're never going to do that.
Right.
So once you, by the way, I'm not recommending doing that because I think that's aggressive. I think I like the tools that I have, and I want them to last for me. So I don't do those kind of things. I don't think it's necessary to do that kind of stuff. But that's the progression I see. At first, tools are very unfamiliar. Once you're used to them, you understand how they work and the intricacies of them, the ins and outs, and then you begin to grow confidence in them, confidence in your ability. They become part of you. Until the tools become part of you within whatever task you're doing, you're never going to be 100% confident in just going out and performing what you know you can do, if that makes sense. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's a progression.
Yeah. It sure does. I like that. I like that breakdown of, how we progress in the sport because, at the start, like it definitely is like that. You're kind of, and I see people do it all the time when they're holding a pistol, like holding it farther away from themselves than they really need to. It's like, as long as you keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction, you can hold it pretty close to you and nothing bad will happen.
Yeah.
The other one is the Mel Gibson when people are running with their gun and they got it down between their legs.
Oh yeah. Or the Charlie's Angels.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is it's a familiarity piece. It's also an ignorance piece. Like, this is what I saw on TV, but it's also one of those things where I got to hold this really far away from me because it's going to make a big loud noise and it's dangerous, right? Whereas, once you get those reps and that experience, you're much more familiar with running around and tossing things.
It's the same. Like at the PCC matches last weekend, my son came out with us, right? And this is a perfect example of being familiar with something. So he was my chauffeur this year, like Andrew was last year.
Yeah,
right?
nice.
So Rush is like, I'm coming this year. I'm going to be the chauffeur. So when he gets, I noticed this with people that when they first learn how to drive. When they turn corners, they don't let go of the wheel. Like we drive now, and we just like we turn the corner halfway through, we just let go of the steering wheel. It straightens out. We grab it and we go. Right? It's like you don't even think about it. Right? You don't think about how much gas you put on, brake, all that kind of stuff. Inevitably, new drivers oversteer. Like so, they'll do the corner and they're like, oh, but they got to turn the wheel back physically. Right? That's the same as having a gun in your hand for the first time. Right? They tell you where you put the MIG in, and you got to rack it, and like they rack it, and then they push it forward, and all you're supposed to let it go. Like on a rifle, right? How many new shooters?
Oh yeah.
When they grab the charging handle, they pull it back, and then they slowly let it go forward, and then it doesn't beat. Like you let it go, right? But until they're familiar with it, they're always going to do that. So, yeah. It's cool to see people gain that confidence. I've done it long enough over the years. Like Rob Syro is a good example, right? When they I first taught them how to shoot, and they came here, Rob actually was the one that knew the most, right? So he understood the guns and how to load the ARs and all that kind of stuff. But John and Andy, they had never touched these things before, so it was like, they would do those kind of things. But Rob is the example. As he's progressed, now you can tell he owns the material that he's using. He owns the guns. They're part of him when he shoots.
Yeah.
You see that happen with new shooters all the time. If they stick around, it just naturally happens. I don't think it's anything that you have to be a good shooter to learn to do that. I don't think that has anything to do with it. It's just being familiar with stuff.
Well, I see that a lot in like stance and body mechanics as well. Like when people are really new, they're very deliberate about where they place their feet in relation to the target. They're very deliberate about how far forward they're leaning and stuff. It's like they're trying to remember all those things where as you progress in the sport, it just becomes like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing right now.
Natural movement. It just becomes natural movement. Yeah, I think that's the coolest part about the shooting sports. As far as, you can apply it to anything.
Yeah.
But when you see people learn and grow into something, and they gain confidence, and then they start to own what they're doing, and then you can tell what their real skill level is, because then they can actually let their mind absorb the task at hand, not all the other operational things that you have to do in addition to it, if that makes sense.
Yep. It's a very good point. It's I don't know how you would I'm trying to think of like a term for it, but you basically just have like agency over the tools, like the tools
your
are
motor skills. Memory, muscle memory and motor skills. They're ingrained into it. You've done it enough times. Just like driving a car, you don't even think about how much gas you have to put on to get to 30 miles an hour.
yeah.
Right? Little things like that. So
that's a very good point. It's very true.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I had no idea how my truck got from here to Missouri. I don't even remember that drive.
Yeah.
It drove itself. You know what I mean? Subconsciously, you're doing everything you need to do, and it frees up your mind to focus on other things at the same time.
Yep.
Most
absolutely.
people call it not paying attention, but or inattentive driving.
I call it a high level of agency. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm multitasking, officer. At 95, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, that concludes our deconstructing practical shooting questions.
Well, I hope it was good on that end of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Always appreciate your perspective on things, and thank you for sticking with me through the technical difficulties and for being on the 3-Gun Show, man. Appreciate you.
No problem. I just sat here and made faces at you until it went back live. So.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Mark.
All right. Peace. Take it easy, guys.
Forgot about that.
Are we still live?